Hey, this is Nathan from the Advanced Age Role-Playing Gamers podcast again. We're still at Pax Unplugged. This is the last day of the show. And we're here talking with folks from Torchbearer about the second edition to find out a little bit more information about what they kickstarted and what's that comes with the whole set. So if I can get you guys to introduce yourselves, this is...
Sure. I'm Luke.
Hi, I'm Tor.
Hello, Luke. Hi, Tor. Nice to spend some time with you. So I've been looking at this game for quite a while. To me, it seems like it's a pretty gritty game, fast, easy to play, and it really brings some of the fear and risk back into role-playing, which I feel is missing in some of the games that have so many safety nets. It's really hard to, you never feel any risk in the game. So that's my attraction to the game, and it's my impression of the game without ever having played it. So I wonder if you could kind of go into, first start off with kind of your philosophy about how this came about and what your thoughts on building this game, how that came to be.
Sure, I'll let Tor take this one, but we call this a role-playing game of desperate survival. Right? We wanted you to feel the weight of the risk when you're going into dungeons. We wanted you to feel the walls closing in around you. We wanted you to feel like the whole world was against you and you were going to get one over on them if you survived.
Right, we really wanted to capture the feel of those old school sort of Moldvay BX D&D games, but with a new school set of rules, with a little bit more control, both from the GM and the players. So it feels very risky. But at the same time, we've created a situation where characters can't actually die except under very certain circumstances.
Okay.
Right? It's almost always a choice that the players have made. The GM cannot kill your character unless you have engaged with with a GM character with the intent to kill.
Yep.
Right? So if you choose to kill, then the gloves come off.
Okay.
Or if you are injured or sick and then do something dangerous, the GM can say, okay, but death is on the line, right? And if you fail that test, then you can die, or you can starve to death. That is the third option.
So it's kind of funny. Matt and I were talking the other day about our first D&D game together back in high school. Yeah. Our horses starved to death because we didn't feed them. And so I kind of like the idea of consequences. So if you choose to go down this path, as long as both the GM and the player, have agreed, like this is the way we're going, I kind of like that feeling. So are there other kind of new school elements that you added to?
Yeah, well, you said consequences, and that is something that's near and dear to our heart. Every time you roll the dice in Torchbearer, there are three things that can happen. You can get what you're after. You can meet the obstacle, as we say in the system. Or you don't, and then the GM kind of gets a beat and then can decide to give you what you are after, but with a condition, or introduce a new twist or a new obstacle in front of your path. So if you are scrambling up a rock wall in Torchbearer and you do not make your dungeoneering check, or your dungeoneer check, excuse me, the game master could say, you make it up the face of the cliff, but you earn a condition and you're exhausted, right? The conditions are hungry, angry, afraid, exhausted, injured, sick, and dead, which is hard to get.
Right.
So you get what you're after, but you pay a small price. And then the GM could say, if maybe they have something else in mind, they could say, you make it halfway up the rock wall, however, you see some shining black eyes staring at you, further up the wall ahead of you. So introducing a twist, which is a new obstacle in this case, some kind of creepy crawly waiting to devour you, and then you've got to confront that before you can proceed up. And so that allows a lot of nuance. Like sometimes you get in these moments in the role-playing game where, you these minor obstacles, you want to confront them, you want to credibly tackle these minor obstacles, but we've all had this where you get derailed, where you're like, oh, well, we failed to check that we really had every right to make.
Yeah.
And so what do we do now? Well, in this one, we say, you got it. You go forward. You're going to get to the big encounter that you want. You're just going to end up there a little bit banged up.
Okay. Yeah, that kind of jives with the style of game I like. It's the heroes get to feel special and important, but they're not going to get there unscathed. So now from the DM side, so we're talking a lot about like what the player is going to get out of it and some of the things. So as far as like designing an adventure for Torchbearer, like what kind of goes into that?
So we actually lay out the procedure pretty clearly in the Scholar's Guide.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, you imagine a place as a functioning place. It could have been a dwarf hold, something like that. You imagine how it was built, what it was built for, and then you go through the process of ruining it. Something happened. Maybe it flooded. Now it's filled with fishmen, or something like that. And so you and then you change the map because the new inhabitants have altered it in some way to fit their use of the new place, and so you go through that, and then the players are going to encounter it. But it's actually a pretty fun exercise to go through if you step by, and we have it laid out step by step.
Okay, so there's a whole kind of mechanic behind dungeon building.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's pretty neat. So with the second edition, what are the big changes from the first edition to the second edition? Back to you. Back to you, Luke.
Well, we for the core rules, we really just wanted to better deliver on the promise of the first edition of Torchbearer. We felt like the core system and like the twists and conditions, which we took from Mouse Guard, but we felt that worked really well. We felt the character classes actually worked pretty well. But in first edition, we never developed the character classes all the way out to level 10. We only had them up to level 5.
Okay.
So in this case, we added the last 5 levels, and so you get a whole host of new level benefits. But then that caused us to go back and rebalance all of the classes. Like we gutted the magician and the ranger, for example, and rebuilt them from scratch. And now they're just much tighter, actually much more fun to play. There were some power balance issues in the first edition, which is fun to a point, but we wanted you to have fun, all the way to level 10, not just to level 5. And then we wanted to bend some of the system elements back in, like, your characters have friends and relations and whatnot, and we added just simple little rules like what happens if your friend is an adventurer versus your friend is in town, and what does that mean? What does that get you? Just little things like that. So when you're asking yourself that question, you're like, oh, wow, the encounter says I met my friend on the road. Huh, what is my friend doing out here? And you can look and like, oh, my friend is a town friend, so that means that they're blah, blah, blah. And then the last thing is we also just wanted to really just add a lot more richness and detail. So we have a random encounter system in the first one that is triggered when you make camp or when you go into town, and we just went like all out for like having so many different events and like different events for every type of camp and every type of town, and just expanding out the list from like 1d6 to 3 to 18 for every type. So we really just wanted to like fill the game out. Like we felt like we had some really promising structure to the game, and we just wanted to put all the bells and whistles on it. Yeah.
Okay. Just more color. And so you're talking about like having friends. Is there like a social conflict mechanic to this too, or?
Oh yeah.
So we actually have a universal conflict system that can be used for any sort of action of that sort. Whether it is combat, you're trying to kill something, if you're trying to run away from something, but also social conflict. If you're trying to argue with someone, you can have a riddling contest.
Oh, okay.
There are ways to set up all of those things. And in the second edition, we have added a new system called Precedence, which the PCs start with 0, and people in town have higher precedence. And so what that means is that if you don't have precedence, people don't even have to talk to you. They just dismiss you out of hand. And so that created some interesting design space for us, because now we have certain classes that can boost their precedence a little bit. They can make themselves a little bit more important. And in fact, the Sorcerer, which is a class that we've introduced in a supplement that we've since released, actually gets precedence against spirits and monsters.
Oh, okay.
Which is super fun.
Because why do you need precedence against spirits and monsters?
So that you can pact with them or bargain with them.
Right. Yeah, dealing with spirits and monsters is a social conflict. And you're so behind the precedence, like precedence matches actually our system for might. We really like the natural order mechanic in Mouse Guard, so we brought that over to Torchbearer in might, in that yes, when a human confronts another human, all things are equal. It's great. When a human confronts a troll, it's a little there's a little bit of an advantage to the troll, and then when a human confronts a dragon, things are much more unbalanced. And the human actually is never penalized. It is just much more advantageous for the troll or dragon to squash the human in that case. And so in the precedence rules, they match that, where if you're two adventurers squabbling over who gets loot, then everything's fine. If you're a temple priest arguing with an adventurer, and then if you're like royalty or some warlord or something like that arguing with that adventurer, your command is going to be worth a lot more in the conflict than whatever they're asking for.
That really sounds like a lot something I wasn't expecting to hear about the game. So that's pretty cool to hear about that.
We really love the idea of scoundrels and dirty fucking adventurers who don't belong, who don't fit in, so we really wanted to give them a reason to get out there into this terrible world, right? In this terrible, ruined world, and trying to extract treasure at the cost of their own lives. And so we realized we had to make civilization, worse than the dungeon, right? It's full of this caste system and prejudice against you, and it's expensive, right? And people just want to take your money anyway, and they don't want to hear from you. So we wanted to create this feeling that, you go back to town, but really you want to be out in the shit.
Yeah. You're highly motivated to get out of town and go on an adventure. So
yeah,
that's pretty awesome. So let me wrap things up with and hopefully I can talk to you guys again sometime, because I want to hear more. But tell us, so when can people get their hands on the second edition?
So we are in the process of fulfilling this right now. Our fulfillment house is working almost round the clock trying to get it out. Yep. We're hoping for the end of the month. We're going to get all of the backer copies out, and at that point we will open it up and get it into distribution and open up on our web store as well.
Which is burningwheel.com and torchbearerrpg.com.
You beat me to it.
Yeah.
and I'll, of course, include those links in the comments. But yeah, this is super fun.
Nice.
But anyway, so great to talk to you guys. And
yeah, thanks so much.
Yep, and thanks, and we'll talk to you soon.